Hello everyone, so I haven't done a weather video in a few days, but I am available tonight, so we are going to do one. It's very late, and honestly I don't really have much optimism or good news to offer for snow lovers in this video, so I'm very tired and don't feel like doing this, but I did promise everybody a weather video, so it'll be good news for those of you who don't want snow. I'm not saying there won't be snow, I'm just saying the odds are against snow on the I-95 for pretty much the next week and a half with the two threats that I'm going to go over. Okay, so this is the European model. So again, on the left, here, top left, you have your 500 millibar vorticity map, which shows pieces of energy, disturbances in the upper atmosphere. On the top right over here, you have your high and low map. Low pressure is where you have storms, high pressure is where there's calm weather. And then on the bottom, you have basically maps that show moisture. So wherever you see green, that's moisture. Wherever you see brown, that is drier air. And I'm going to focus on the top two maps, as I normally do. So this is the European model. This is the newest run. See, that looks good. So if you look at this piece of energy over the central portion of the United States right now, this is the storm, the Christmas storm that we were talking about last week. I haven't really looked at the news, but I would expect that the Midwest did get snow from this, and obviously for those of you who live on Long Island and the Mid-Atlantic, we all got rain. And we still do have a chance of rain through later tonight and maybe into tomorrow morning as this storm moves on through. Okay, here's the piece of, here's the area of low pressure associated with that storm. On the eastern side, you have a southwest flow, so you have warmer air coming up. And around, you have colder air coming down, and we will cool down a little bit, but not for long. We're actually going to get warmer this weekend, and I'll explain why in a minute. So here's the trough that created the storm, and that's going to move out. Okay, so that moves out. This is Thursday evening, tomorrow evening, or depending on when you're watching this evening. Here's the next piece of energy that we are concerned about. Coming into the southwest, and if you notice, normally behind a trough like this is the Christmas storm, the way the winds rotate around low pressure, you would get a shot of cold air coming in, but one of the problems is this is too far north. That's one problem. The second problem is you have high pressure developing over the southeast here, and this high is actually going to rotate warmer ocean air up across the east here. It's not really near any cold air masses, so it can't really rotate any cold air down south. So we're going to be warming up into the weekend, and because you have a high here, you have this piece of energy here over the southwest. You have your storm across the southwest, across northern Texas on Thursday evening. This storm, because you have a high here, is going to go to the north and east, like the Christmas Day storm, pass to the north and west of New England, I-95, and most of the models are saying that the East Coast is actually not even going to be affected by this storm in any significant way. You know, it could just be some light rain, and then as you get further west into western New York and over the Ohio Valley, you could get some rain over there. And then I expect, again, I didn't look into this too much because I mainly forecast for the Mid-Atlantic and the I-95, but I would expect that as this storm moves to the north and east, you would get snow across the Midwest again. So, very similar to the Christmas Day storm. This will be this weekend, so watch out Midwest and Ohio Valley for some precipitation this weekend. Okay, next part, the energy is moving along. Okay, so here, this piece of energy just kind of like, it becomes, what's the word I'm looking for? Strung out. That's what I was looking for. So if you look at this run here, it's kind of isolated, and then the next part here becomes strung out, so that means it's weakening a little bit. And here's that storm. So this is into Saturday evening. The storm is now up across the Midwest, and now ahead on the eastern side of low pressure and on the western side of a high, the winds are coming out of the southwest. So the east coast warms up, and if we do get any precipitation, it will be in the form of rain, possibly on Sunday. Now, you still have to watch the southern portion of this to possibly create another storm, and this is where the models diverge. So, when you get to 96, so we were here, now we're here. So this piece of energy, if you just pay attention, this strung out piece here, it kind of just, not dissipates, but really like weakens. It kind of like gets absorbed by this other upper low over here in the lower Canada. See that? So this piece of energy kind of, it doesn't really bring anything to the East Coast. It's weak and strung out, but you still have this little piece of energy remaining in the south across Mississippi and Louisiana, and that's where you have to be a little bit concerned for not a strong storm, but something could develop. And if you look, you do have an area of low pressure across the southeast, and this is on Sunday evening. And the models are saying that this low, which is going to be very weak, is going to take an east-northeasterly track, but it's going to track farther south than would be favorable for snow along I-95, and it is going to be very weak too. At least that's what the European model is saying. So if you move along, so here's that piece of energy, okay? And now you don't even see it anymore, but this is the piece of energy that we're watching that created the weak area of low pressure here. And if you move along one more frame, see it moves from here across the Carolinas, past the Delmarva, and out to sea, and it's 1012 millibars, which is not that strong. So now here's where the models diverge. If you notice in the European, this piece of energy is not well defined. It's very weak. It kind of gets absorbed into the northern part here. This is also very weak, so there's not really a storm. The Canadian model, however, this is Sunday evening. Just take a look here. The Canadian model, it's a little more amplified in the south. And so if you move along, so we were here. So now here's the piece of energy again. This is on Monday morning. It's across the Carolinas. Here's your storm. And you can see this storm is actually ramping up a little bit. And now as we go to Monday evening, that piece of energy is now over here, across the Delmarva. This trough is coming in from the west. That's going to amplify precipitation and strengthen this piece and strengthen the storm in general. Here's your storm over the Carolinas. Also, it's a little slower. Whenever you have a strong storm, it always goes slower. The European is weaker and faster. The Canadian model is stronger and slower. Okay, so right now we are on Monday evening. And look at this. Look at all this precipitation here. And behind the weekend storm across the Midwest, so behind this trough up here, you have more colder air coming in. So if this storm does come to fruition, like the Canadian model is saying, there will be a period of snow, possibly across southern New England, lower Hudson Valley, I-95 corridor, maybe down into the Mid-Atlantic here, across Virginia, D.C., those areas, Maryland, of course, and Pennsylvania, and maybe even back into Kentucky, and just all these areas covered in here. Again, on the northern side of the low, though, and that's why the track of the low is important, because on the northern side you have your colder air. That's where your snow is going to be. So that's the difference. It's really the fact that this piece of energy is more amplified in the Canadian model than the European. Now, the Canadian model brings in about 3 to 6 inches of snow across the Mid-Atlantic, 2 to 4 across southern New England, and less further south than that. So, what I can say is we're still 5 days out, and the Canadian model is the only model that has the piece of energy being this strong. So I'm not confident that this scenario will happen. In fact, I think it's a very low chance that it will happen. But you'll have to see what happens. The European model could switch back and forth. We'll keep an eye on it. But what I am confident in saying, though, is that most of the models do agree that a weak area of low pressure, at least a weak one, will be passing south sometime between Sunday night and Monday night. So there will be a chance of at least some light snow in the Sunday to Monday night time period. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that. If the models show a stronger solution and they start to, like if the European and GFS start to go towards the Canadian solution, then we'll see what happens. But what I'm expecting is, I'm expecting the Canadian model is going to lose this stronger solution as we head along. Just because the European model is usually more accurate. So we'll see what happens though, you know? And then later next week, there's one more disturbance, and it is this trough across the southwest. The trough that moves through on Tuesday into Wednesday delivers another shot of colder air, Arctic air, for the middle of next week. And the setup is perfect for a big snowstorm because you have a dip in the jet stream, and you have a cold air mass in place. So you would say to yourself, okay, so we have a good setup next week. We should get a snowstorm on the I-95, but there's a problem. And both the Canadian and the European support this track of the low. In fact, it looks better on the Canadian model. Let me do that. Okay, hold on. Alright, so let's just go right to 156. So here's that trough that we're talking. This is the disturbance we're watching for next weekend. Not this weekend that's coming, the following weekend after New Year's. Okay, look at this Arctic air mass that's in place. Like, this is really impressive. This is like the first Arctic blast that we've had all year, coming in later next week. But there's a problem. This trough, you see the dip in the jet stream is not far enough east for this piece of energy to come down to the Gulf and come up the coast. You want the dip in the jet stream to be further east than it is here. It's kind of like this. It comes up and then it goes across the Ohio Valley up into New England. So the track of this storm, once again, when it comes up, is going to be north and west of the I-95. So here, just watch this disturbance across the southwest and watch what it does. It's going, it's speeding up. But look at that. You really want this energy to dig into the Gulf here and then come up like so. But the dip in the jet stream, look at the contour lines, brings it up to the north and east from Texas. And that's a problem. It's not digging far enough south. So here's your storm right here. And then, look, it's over the Ohio Valley. So that means the East Coast gets rain, New England gets snow, as usual for this time of year. Hopefully this pattern starts to change. This will be for next, again, weekend after New Year's. So we'll keep this updated, but right now this does not look like a threat for snow on the I-95 once again. So if you want snow on the I-95 like I do, because that's where I live, we might have to wait a little while longer. What I wasn't wrong about, though, was I said we were going to have colder air come in during New Year's week, and we are. We're getting a pretty good shot of Arctic air next week. So that I was not wrong about. But the problem is the jet stream is not set up properly for a snowstorm on the I-95 just yet. But that will change eventually, because it always does, every winter. If you think about it, we get our biggest snowstorms mainly in January and February. So I'm not too concerned. I'm still confident that we're going to have some snowstorms. Just probably won't be for a little while longer. I don't think any time in the next week, unless the Canadian model's solution for Tuesday comes into fruition, but that's very unlikely. So stay updated. We'll update this throughout the upcoming days. Thank you for watching.